Shanti, how are you? Today we are going to see how is it possible to identify if somebody is enlightened or not. So before that we need to know what enlightenment actually means. So we call this divine knowledge given directly by God as enlightenment. And the enlightened being is believed to possess the divine knowledge. So, in other words, to put it very simply, you can say the truth. So, knowing the truth and being the truth is the sign of an enlightened being. Truth about what? Truth about who I am, truth about who God is, truth about the past, present, and future of this world. If you know these truths, then you're said to be enlightened. And no man who has ever lived in this world possesses this knowledge. Only God has it, and He'll be able to give this knowledge directly to humans only when He comes. And He comes in the end of the last yuga called Kali Yuga, which is now. He comes 100 years before the destruction of this old world. He enters an old man's body and gives this knowledge about the 5,000 year time cycle called Kalpa. So the first half of this Kalpa is heaven and the last half is hell. So in the beginning of heaven, we were born as deities with divine qualities. And at the top of it, we were all soul conscious, which means we considered ourselves to be these imperishable souls that shines like a tiny star in between the eyebrows, which is why we have this habit of wearing religious symbols in between the eyebrows. So it is the soul that sees through the eyes, speaks through the mouth, listens through the ears, and performs every single action. So he is the doer, and the body we possess is just an instrument for the soul. So that is what soul consciousness is all about, and they should be called enlightened beings because they know the truth about what? About who we are, that we are souls. But they don't know the knowledge about God and present, past, and future of this world. But still, they know they were souls. Not only that, they do not know anything about sins, and they don't do any sort of sins. So they can be called enlightened being, and they can be called a very pure divine beings. So that's the reason the residents of heaven are worshipped as deities by Hindus till date. But what we do not know is it is us who were originally deities in our past births. And after the completion of first 2,500 years, we started building temples for ourselves without knowing that. Then we started worshipping. And in the end, God himself enters an old man's body and he names him Brahma, and he starts giving this knowledge about this past, present, and future. God says the heaven was filled with treasure, health, wealth, and whatnot. It is filled with everything that one needs to stay blissful forever, and also will be ever healthy to enjoy it. So, not only humans but also other animals in heaven, even they possess divine qualities. They were so loving to each other, which is why in religious scriptures it is mentioned that cows and lions, they drink water from the same pond at the same time, which means they don't feed on each other. And God says, after coming to hell in the last 2500 years, we lose body consciousness and we lose soul consciousness and become fully body conscious, because of which we become addicted to these five vices such as lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. These five vices are called sinful acts. That is the root cause of all the evils that we've been doing. Thereby we are facing the punishments for them as in the form of diseases, poverty, natural calamities, and so on. And God says this basically to help us come out of the punishments for our past sins that we've been committing for the past 2500 years in hell. So God says, it is because you are body conscious, you are addicted to these sinful acts, so get rid of body consciousness and regain soul consciousness. Now we know that we are souls and we were soul conscious in the beginning and we have lost it. We need to be soul conscious. Despite knowing these truths, it is impossible for us to stay soul conscious because we got so much addicted to these worldly pleasures that it is very difficult for us to get rid of body consciousness altogether. And that is the reason God gives the introduction about himself. God says, just like you are a soul that shines like a tiny star in between the eyebrows, even I, the God, is also a soul. He shines like a tiny star in the golden red colored light world. And we souls, before taking birth in earth, resided along with God in this soul world, which is also called Parandam or Parlok. The only difference between God and us is we take birth as humans and we enter this birth and death cycle that lasts for 5000 years, while God stays out of this cycle. Even in the end, he enters an old man's body directly to give this knowledge using his mouth. He doesn't take birth like us as humans from a mother's womb. Thereby, he remains soul conscious forever. And he says that by remembering God as a point of light as much as possible, we will regain the strength or power to concentrate that we are souls. So it is going to be easy for us to become soul conscious again. By becoming soul conscious, we will automatically be getting rid of these vices. Thereby, we will start emerging those divine qualities that is buried deep within our souls. So to do that, we need to consider ourselves and to remember God as much as possible, and also we need to study Murli, which is the direct knowledge of God that is given directly by God through unworld man's body, that is through Brahma's mouth. So that Murli is available absolutely free of cost in all Raj Yoga meditation centers, and also it is found in many websites and YouTube channels. I'll be giving the links of some of them in the description below this video. Please make use of it, because that is the truth that we are talking about. One needs that knowledge to get enlightened. But it doesn't mean just by getting those knowledge that we are enlightened just like that. Because knowing the knowledge is one thing, but being that knowledge is another thing. So we need to imbibe that knowledge so deeply that it becomes your natural character. So it changes your character. It changes your character from devilish character of Kali Yuga to the divine character of Satyug, the new world, heaven. So all we need to achieve that is we need to remember God as much as possible, and we need to remember the Murli points as much as possible all the time. We should never ever leave our mind empty. If you are not keeping your mind busy with the remembrance of God and the remembrance of this divine knowledge, then obviously your mind is going to wander into worldly attractions, thereby pushing you towards committing sinful acts. So what is the truth? The truth is that we are souls, not this body. The truth is those divine qualities that we possessed originally in the beginning of heaven, they are our original characters. But we forget ourselves, we forget our qualities. Now we end up picking up these devilish qualities. We need to get rid of that. For that, we need to remember that they are not our original qualities. It is by becoming body conscious and acquiring those devilish qualities that we start losing everything God gave us in the beginning, like the health, wealth, peacefulness, blissfulness. We lose everything because of our body consciousness. We need to remember this constantly, so that we stay away from any triggers that makes us body conscious. So we need to repeatedly inform ourselves that we are originally souls, not this body. Now, how to identify that someone is enlightened or not? The answer is pretty simple. You just can't identify the other person if he is enlightened or not. Not only that, it's waste to make such an effort because it is Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is an era of foolish people. So where do you find someone enlightened among foolish people? It's highly impossible. But after the arrival of God, obviously one will become enlightened. You don't become enlightened just by getting the knowledge of God by becoming a bhikkhuni. But you can be called as enlightened being only if you be the truth yourself, which means only if you start exhibiting the divine qualities that you exhibited in heaven, you will be called enlightened being. But it is impossible to find whether the other person who has taken this knowledge as enlightened or not. It's impossible to find it by spending a day or two with them, because you can find people, they're just acting. It is difficult to find whether they are being real or being fake, and it is unnecessary for you to do research on others. Instead, the only person whom you know 100% sure is yourself. So you can see how much enlightened you have become. But you can't be 100% enlightened, because if you have become 100% enlightened, you can't be in this impure body or in this impure world. Once you get 100% enlightened, which means once you get 100% pure, you will be leaving this body to take a new body in the new world. So that's not going to happen now. That will happen only in the end, only when most of the people who take this knowledge becomes enlightened, the world starts getting destroyed. But till then, you can see for yourself on how much you have enlightened. So whether it is 20%, 30%, 40%, you can check it yourself. How do you do that? See, what happens now is you are traveling from hell to heaven. Just like people fleeing Ukraine to its neighboring countries. Why? Because there was war. So what? Because one needs to suffer a lot during war times, which is why they are fleeing the country. Likewise, in hell, no matter where you are, you're going to suffer. Just because they flee Ukraine doesn't mean they're going to enter heaven and they're going to find some beautiful place and beautiful life. No, that's impossible no matter where you go, because it's ultimately within hell you are roaming. But now God helps us to get rid of hell once and for all. So what do you need to do? You need to become soul conscious, but we've been body conscious for the past 2500 years, so it's not that easy to become soul conscious just like that. So you need to repeatedly remember God. You need to repeatedly say to yourself that you are not this perishable body but the imperishable soul. And also we need to recollect the Murli points every now and then, so that your mind is always busy with this divine knowledge, with the remembrance of God, so that you don't give any time for you to get anything that's happening outside into your mind. So that keeps all the poison that's required to keep your body conscious external to you. So you don't let them inside your mind. But there are many poisonous things in your mind that you have been collecting from your past births for the past 2500 years. How to get rid of them altogether? Simple. By remembering God, your mind becomes pure and pure, and by repeating those knowledge points, your mind slowly starts to imbibe those points to the point that it becomes your true nature. those divine qualities become your true nature. You know, when Syrian refugees, when they wanted to flee Syria, none of the neighboring countries were happy to allow them. So they stopped them at the border and asked them to go back to where they came from. They are not allowed in their countries. So we're not going to politics, but just bear that in mind, because it's going to help you to understand this knowledge better, because what we are trying to do is to enter heaven. How do we enter heaven? By mimicking the qualities of heaven. How do we mimic? Yes, by learning the knowledge, we get to know about how we were in heaven. So we start mimicking it. By mimicking it repeatedly, that becomes our true nature. But there's a big challenge. There's a 5,000-year gap between between the beginning of heaven and the end of the hell. So by remembering God and by remembering the knowledge points, what's happening really is our soul is slowly becoming purer and purer, and it's going backwards, because our souls were comparatively purer in our past births when compared to now. So just there is a strict border between neighboring countries. Here you can't get back to the state of your past birth. It's highly impossible, because there are many subtle barriers that you cannot break, that you do not care to break till now. Only God gives us the knowledge to enter heaven directly, which means you're going to break all the barricades, all the subtle barricades that's been laid for the past 5,000 years. So that's going to come in the form of lust, in the form of anger, greed, attachment, ego, jealousy, many things in many forms. So you need to watch out for those enemies, those invisible enemies. They may come through your parents, through your life partners, through your siblings, through your kids, through your friends and relatives, in your workplace, in the form of natural calamities. It will come in any form, and you expect them to come, because it's a subtle battlefield. You will definitely encounter hurdle after hurdle, because you're going to heaven. That's not a simple thing. You can't just go there without making any effort. So the effort is pretty simple. You just remain soul conscious. But it is easy to be soul conscious for a second. But it is very, very difficult to be soul conscious and to stay soul conscious like forever. That needs intense power of concentration, because anything that happens around you is going to be a distraction that's going to make you forget that you are trying to be soul conscious. So you need to be very aware, very conscious of the fact that you need to get rid of body consciousness. You need to get rid of anything that triggers you back to body consciousness. So how do you do that? God gives many tactics for that through Murli. And the God I'm speaking about is called God Shiva in Hinduism, Allah in Islam, Heavenly Godfather in Christianity, and God is one. He doesn't take body like us. He stays in the light form forever, which is why Hindus worship God Shiva in the form of ling, which represents the point of light, and the lower half represents the lotus mouth of Brahma, which is why it is designed in the form of lotus. So anything that's happening around you is going to be a distraction for you. What does it distract you from? It's going to distract from you from reaching your destination, which is heaven. And the path to heaven is to be soul conscious forever and to remember God as much as possible. So by remembering God, you will be filled with the power to concentrate. So these barricades come in the form of lust, anger, greed, in any form of vice. And these barricades are shown as demons that come in the way of Hanuman when he was visiting Sita Devi for the first time in Sri Lanka. So how do we break those barricades? It's simple. All we need to do is to remember that we are souls that's going to heaven. And any situation that comes in front of you is just a test paper that you need to pass. How to pass those test papers? By being self-conscious, by being conscious of the fact that you are traveling to heaven, and by being conscious that you should never bring your attention to this world no matter what happens, whether it's the death of your loved ones or any sort of problem. All you need to remember is you're going there. By you, I mean just the soul, not even this body. So this soul needs to go there. If something happens to someone close to me in this world, what it's basically doing is trying to pull me back to this world in the form of attachment. So you need to detach yourself by remaining in soul consciousness. So if you get your attention back to what's happening around you, it means you have fallen back to body consciousness, which means you have failed the test. The barricade, it is still intact. You haven't broken it. For example, if something is happening in front of you that's going to trigger the anger within you. So if it is an ordinary person, he is going to fight against them. He is going to use angry words on them. But an enlightened person in this similar situation will be solely focusing within, that he needs to retain the peacefulness, which is his true nature. We used to start this video by saying Om Shanti, which means Om means I'm a soul. Shanti means peace. So peace is the true nature of the soul. So I'm an embodiment of peace. If I'm soul conscious, obviously I'm going to stay peaceful. If I lose peace, it is quite obvious that I have lost soul consciousness and become body conscious. So, most of the time, the right and wrong as dictated by the world will make you lose space. Even if you stand for the right, you're going to lose space. So, if you stay peaceful and you take a step forward without disturbing the peace within you, without disturbing the peace of everybody around you, that is the right step that needs to be taken forward. Otherwise, no matter what you do, it is not right. You are just going towards hell. So, if you are able to move forward without disturbing the peace of yourself and others, that is the right step towards heaven. If you are conscious about this in every step you take, in every second, then you are said to be an enlightened soul. If something goes wrong around you, if you make effort to make it right externally, then you are an ordinary person. But instead, if something goes wrong around you, you know this is hell, this is what happens in hell. So just having this knowledge is enough to make yourself peace within. Then you're said to be an enlightened soul. So you're guarding yourself by the remembrance of God and by the remembrance of knowledge of God, that you don't get disturbed even a bit by the external influences. You are not influenced by anything that happens around you, then you are enlightened. But if you get disturbed, you are an ordinary person, even if you have taken this knowledge. Because it doesn't matter whether or not you take this knowledge if it's not going to make any difference in you. After taking this new divine knowledge of God, you might reach a position that you will be able to answer any questions. You can, but it doesn't mean you are enlightened. So, you are enlightened if you are able to exhibit the qualities dictated by the direct knowledge of God. Till then, you are not enlightened. Actually, the lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego, they are the barricades. So how to break them? By remaining in soul conscious stage. But if you express lust or anger, what happens is the barricade remains and you are not allowed to go through it. So that is what you, being an ordinary person, do in those situations. When something sexual happens in front of you, you're expressing the lust within. So you fail the test and you are in the same stage, or you are going back to the inferior state. So to attain the superior stage, you need to remain soul conscious all the time. You need to have this tremendous amount of concentration power that reminds you constantly that you are the soul that needs to cross the barrier in order to enter heaven. So for that, you need to fill your mind with these thoughts, these spiritual thoughts all the time, so that it is visible through your eyes, through the words you speak, through all your actions. So that shows you are truly enlightened. And only you will know that, because you know for sure that you are not acting, but it has become your natural character now, so that you are now eligible to enter heaven, because you already possess all the qualities that you originally possessed while you were in heaven in the beginning. So regarding speaking in a recent Murli, God says how an enlightened person speaks. You should speak very little, very sweet, and very soft. In a situation that demands 100 words, speak just 2 to 3 words. And every single word that comes out of your mouth should make sense and should be useful to the ones you speak with. Truly enlightened person can't afford to speak ordinary words or unwanted words, because only if you lose soul consciousness that you will be able to speak more. So that is the reason even in Bible it is mentioned that if you speak more words, then you are leading towards hell. So the enlightened person will not be captivated by anything, by any attractions, any worldly attractions. So he will be solely focused on crossing the border between hell and heaven. He will always be focused at breaking all the barriers that comes in between him and heaven. If you are that conscious, then you are said to be truly enlightened or spiritually awakened. But failing to any vices that will make an enlightened person to form a new tactic that is necessary to pass the test that he is going to encounter in the near future. So he will always be preparing himself to pass all the tests that comes his way. Actually, that's the only thing he is going to worry throughout his life, because God says that there will be some impurities within you unless you get 100% enlightened. That's going to happen only in the end. So you should always look within you for all the faults that still lies hidden within you, so that you work on it to overcome it. So only God Shiva knows the truth. So he is the only true Guru that speaks the truth, which is why he is called the true Guru or Sadhguru. Everybody else is a fake Guru. So you cannot reach enlightenment by following fake gurus or his teachings, and nobody has ever become enlightened so far. So it is only now, after getting the divine knowledge of God, you will be able to become to be soul conscious and to be enlightened. So what are you going to receive by becoming enlightened? You're going to receive the true world, the new world that is filled with blissfulness, prosperity, peacefulness, health, wealth. Everything will be in a filled state in heaven. So that's the gift God gives us for becoming pure and enlightened. So don't find fault with others, instead find fault with yourself using the directions of God, which is available in all Raj Yoga meditation centers, and also the knowledge that is required for us to get enlightened is called Murli, and it is also available in many websites and YouTubes. I'll be giving the links in the description below this video. Please make use of those links to read Murli's daily, and wish you best luck in the path of enlightenment. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit on the thumbs up button, leave your valuable comments, and do subscribe to our channel if you haven't, and please share this video with your friends and relatives so that even they get enlightened. Thanks again.